What if I told you that the thing inside your skull isn't just a humid storage unit for high school memories and old song lyrics?
Or a biological calculator for doing your taxes.
Right. What if that gray matter is actually a piece of high-tech broadcasting machinery?
And you aren't speaking metaphorically here, I assume. We aren't, doing poetry
No
today.
poetry, I mean literally. What if your brain is a radio station capable of physically sending out signals and picking up frequencies from the universe around you?
It sounds like the plot of some sci-fi novel from the 1950s.
It really does.
But if we look at the source material we have on the desk today, this concept is actually the cornerstone of perhaps the most influential success philosophy ever written.
Exactly. We're doing a deep dive into the grandfather of all self-help books, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Published way back in 1938.
Yeah, 1938.
Yeah.
And I've seen this book on bookshelves my entire life. It's one of those titles that feels like it's just always existed, like gravity.
Or taxes.
Right. But digging into the background, this wasn't just some guy banging out a blog post over a weekend.
Far from it. This book is an absolute beast of research. I mean, it represents 25 years of work.
25 years.
Yeah, it started when a young, unknown Napoleon Hill interviewed Andrew Carnegie.
The steel magnate.
Right, who was, practically speaking, the richest man in the world at the time.
Imagine getting that interview today. That's like some college kid interviewing Musk or Bezos and having them hand over a 20-year homework assignment.
That's exactly what happened. Carnegie challenged Hill to organize a philosophy of individual achievement. He basically said, don't just write my story. That's too easy.
Go study everyone else.
Right. Go study the 500 wealthiest people in America, titans like Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, F.W. Woolworth, and find the common denominator. Find the code.
And Hill took that seriously.
Yeah.
He is very clear in the preface that this isn't a novel to be read for entertainment. He actually calls it a textbook on individual achievement.
Which is why we're taking a specific angle today.
Yes. Today, we're doing something a little different. We aren't going to skim the whole book. We're skipping straight to the advanced class.
My favorite part.
We are diving specifically into Chapter 13, The Brain.
Which is really the perfect place to focus, because that is where the rubber meets the road. The mission for this deep dive is to demystify Hill's concept of the brain as a broadcasting and receiving station.
We want to break down exactly how he says you can tune this machinery to turn thoughts into reality. And we're going to use simple, actionable language.
But before we start messing with the dials on this radio, we need to understand the power source. Because you can't broadcast a signal if the station is dead.
That's a good point. And Hill talks a lot about a secret in this book.
He does, and he's a bit coy about it, honestly. He never actually names the secret directly.
Well, he says it appears in every chapter, right?
Yeah, but he claims it works best when you uncover it yourself. However, the foundation of using the brain's broadcasting power really begins with what he covers in Chapter 2, which is desire.
In Chapter 4, autosuggestion.
Exactly.
And I think this is where a lot of people get tripped up or maybe roll their eyes a bit. Because he says you can't just wish for things.
Wishes are weak. They have no amperage. To keep with the electrical metaphor, you need a burning desire.
So what does that actually look like? Because burning desire sounds good on a motivational poster, but practically speaking.
Well, Hill outlines 6 very specific steps to transmute desire into money. And I think it's worth walking through these.
Let's do it.
They act as the input code for the brain. If you don't punch these in, the broadcasting station just doesn't turn on.
Okay, step 1. Fix in your mind the exact amount of money you desire. He says you can't just say, I want plenty of money.
Right. The brain needs a specific target coordinate. Plenty is static. $10 million is a frequency. You have to be precise.
Step 2. Determine exactly what you intend to give in return for the money.
This is the one most people skip. Hill is adamant here. There is no such reality as something for nothing.
So if you're broadcasting a signal that says, give me money, but the signal lacks the service you're providing.
The universe and the market doesn't pick up the call.
Makes sense. Step 3. Establish a definite date when you intend to possess the money. Deadline pressure.
Crucial.
Step 4. Create a definite plan for carrying out your desire and start immediately, whether you're ready or not.
That start immediately part is key. It's about action. Even if the plan is completely imperfect, the movement generates the energy. You don't wait for the traffic lights to all be green before you leave the driveway.
Step 5. Write it all out. A clear, concise statement of the amount, the time limit, what you'll give in return, and the plan.
And finally, step 6. Read your written statement aloud twice daily, once just before bed and once right when you wake up.
And here's the kicker, the part that bridges the gap to Chapter 13. As you read it, you have to see and feel and believe yourself already in possession of the money.
This brings us to what Hill calls a legitimate trick.
To the skeptic, this sounds a lot like fake it till you make it.
It does, but Hill claims something biological is happening here. He is essentially describing a hack for the subconscious mind.
How so?
The text explains that the subconscious mind is the connecting link. It's the chemical laboratory. But, and this is critical, it only acts on thoughts that are mixed with emotion or feeling, faith.
So, dryly reading a goal sheet like it's a grocery list does absolutely nothing.
Zero results. Hill actually compares it to Emile Coué's famous affirmation, "Day by day, in every way, I am getting better and better." If you say that without emotion, it's just noise.
You have to mix faith into the words.
You have to convince the subconscious that the money is already waiting for you.
It's almost like the subconscious is this literal-minded employee. If you say, I wish I had money, it files that under wishes.
Right.
But if you say, I am in possession of this money, with total conviction, the employee says, oh, I better find a way to make that true.
Precisely. It accepts the command as a fact and starts working on the logistics, and that is the perfect segue into Chapter 13.
Because once the subconscious is primed with that emotionalized thought, it hands the data over to the broadcasting machinery.
Exactly. Hill titles this chapter, The Brain, a broadcasting and receiving station for thought.
Now, we have to remember, in 1938, radio was the high-tech thing. It was the internet of its day.
It was, and Hill actually worked with Dr. Alexander Graham Bell.
The guy who invented the telephone.
Yes, to understand this stuff. He posits that the brain operates much like a radio because it functions through the ether.
We should probably pause on the word ether.
Yeah.
That's a scientific concept that's largely been discarded, right?
In modern physics, yes. But in Hill's time, the ether was the theoretical medium that permeated the universe and carried light waves and radio waves.
So how should we think about it today?
Think of it today as the electromagnetic field, or if you want to get really modern, the quantum field. The point Hill is making is that there is a medium that connects every mind to every other mind. We aren't isolated islands. We are nodes in a network.
Okay, so let's break down the hardware of this network. He says there's a sending set and a receiving set.
Yes. The sending station of the brain is the subconscious mind. That is where you broadcast your thoughts out into the ether.
Which is why that emotional mixing we just talked about is so vital. You're modulating the signal.
An unemotional thought is like a radio station broadcasting dead air. No one hears it.
And the receiving set.
That is the creative imagination. This is the faculty that picks up vibrations or ideas released by other brains, or even from what Hill calls infinite intelligence.
So when we get a hunch or a sudden flash of inspiration, like when you're in the shower and suddenly the solution to a work problem pops into your head, Hill would argue that's not random.
Not random at all.
That's our creative imagination picking up a signal.
Exactly. He notes that the creative imagination works automatically, but it functions only when the conscious mind is vibrating at an exceedingly rapid rate.
This brings us to the concept of vibration, which I found really interesting. He basically says that most of us are walking around with our radios turned off.
Or at least turned down too low to pick up anything valuable. Hill explains that to operate the broadcasting station, the mind must be stimulated. You have to step up the vibrations. If your mind is sluggish, fearful, or just coasting on routine, the station is offline.
You aren't sending, and you definitely aren't receiving.
You're just existing.
And he lists 10 mind stimulants to get those vibrations up. Things like love, music, friendship. But he singles out one as the most powerful.
He does.
And I think we have to address it because he devotes a whole separate chapter to it. Sex transmutation.
Yeah, and it often gets misunderstood or giggled at today. But in the context of the brain, Hill identifies the emotion of sex as the most intense stimulus known to humanity.
But he's not talking about the physical act itself.
No, he's talking about the energy.
He's saying that sexual desire is a high-voltage current.
Exactly. It's raw drive. Most people just let that energy ground out. But Hill says that when this energy is transmuted, meaning redirected from physical expression to creative effort, it steps up the mind's vibrations.
To a pitch where the creative imagination becomes super receptive.
Yes. It creates a state of genius. Hill argues that thoughts vibrating at this high rate can pass between brains, whereas ordinary low-energy thoughts just don't. It pushes your signal through the noise.
Okay, so let's say we have machinery. Subconscious to send, creative imagination to receive. But how do we actually tune in?
Practically speaking.
Yeah. If I'm sitting at my desk trying to solve a problem, What's the practical method for boosting this signal?
Hill offers a very specific method called the mastermind. And I think this is often trivialized in modern business as just a networking group or a weekly board meeting.
It's not just a coffee catch-up.
No. Hill defines the mastermind as a coordination of knowledge and effort in a spirit of harmony between two or more people for the attainment of a definite purpose.
The key word there is harmony.
When you blend your mind with others in a spirit of perfect harmony, the text says you tap into a third, invisible, intangible force.
He says that two minds coming together literally create a third mind.
He uses a battery analogy, which I love. One battery provides a certain amount of energy, but if you link a bank of batteries together, the power output doesn't just double, it multiplies.
So when you discuss your definite plans with a mastermind group, people who are aligned with you, who believe in you, you are physically stimulating your brain to vibrate higher.
You become more receptive to ideas from the ether that you wouldn't catch on your own.
That explains why so many of the people he analyzed, like Andrew Carnegie, didn't actually know the technical details of their own businesses. I mean, Carnegie knew nothing about making steel.
Carnegie explicitly told Hill that. He knew very little about the chemistry of steel or the mechanics of manufacturing, but he had a mastermind group of about 50 men who did know.
He broadcasted his desire and purpose to them.
And their combined brain power became his power. He was the central station tuning into all their frequencies.
So let's say we've got the radio on. We're broadcasting our desire. We're sitting in a mastermind group, boosting the signal. What stops this from working? Why do people still fail?
That brings us to the break. In the text, Hill discusses the 30 major causes of failure. But the one he highlights as the most common enemy, the thing that jams the signal, is lack of persistence.
This is chapter 9. He has that famous line, "A quitter never wins and a winner never quits."
It sounds like a bumper sticker now.
It really does. But the examples he gives are pretty heavy.
They are. He talks about how most people possess the desire, but they lack the stamina. They give up at the very first sign of temporary defeat.
And Hill makes a crucial distinction here. There's a difference between temporary defeat and failure.
He says every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent success. Look at the story of Edwin C. Barnes. This is one of the best stories in the book.
Barnes didn't just want a job. He had a consuming obsession to work with Thomas Edison. Not for him. With him.
And he had everything working against him. He didn't know Edison. He didn't have the money for a train ticket to New Jersey.
He literally rode a freight train.
A freight train to Orange, New Jersey. And he looked like a tramp when he arrived. Now imagine walking into Elon Musk's office looking like a hobo and saying, "I'm here to be your partner."
Security would tackle you before you hit the lobby.
Exactly. But Barnes had a burning desire. He didn't say, "I'll keep my eyes open for an opportunity." He said, "I will burn all bridges behind me and stake my entire future on my ability to get what I want."
And he worked for 5 years in the Edison offices doing menial work before he got his break.
He was persistent. He kept the radio broadcasting that one signal for 5 years straight.
Then there's Henry Ford. Hill talks about Ford's dream of the horseless carriage. He didn't wait for the perfect time. He started with the tools he got.
He was uneducated, he had no capital, and everyone told him he was crazy.
But he succeeded anyway.
Hill mentions that Ford was often misunderstood as ruthless or cold, but Hill argues that what people saw was actually sheer willpower mixed with persistence. Ford simply refused to let the break of doubt stop his machine.
This leads to a concept Hill calls money consciousness. I think this is really important for you listening to grasp. You don't have to try to be poor, do you?
No, that's the scary part. Hill writes that poverty consciousness will voluntarily seize the mind which is not occupied with money consciousness.
It happens automatically.
Poverty is like weeds in a garden. They grow if you don't plant anything else. You have to deliberately fill your mind, broadcast that signal of riches and success.
Or the ether will just fill your head with fear and limitation.
Precisely. And once you master this, once you have the desire, the autosuggestion, the persistence, and the mastermind working, Hill says you arrive at the apex of his philosophy. Chapter 14.
The sixth sense. This is where things get a little mystical.
Yeah.
He calls it the door to the temple of wisdom.
He treats this with a lot of reverence. The sixth sense is the receiving set of the creative imagination dialed up to the maximum. It is the medium of contact between the finite mind of man and infinite intelligence.
But there's a warning here. You can't just skip to chapter 14.
No. Hill states explicitly that this principle can only be understood and applied after you have mastered the other 12 principles.
And he notes that it usually doesn't develop well until a person is past the age of 40.
Which seems arbitrary at first.
Why 40?
He suggests it takes that long to mature the mind and align the spiritual forces. It requires meditation and self-examination, but once it is active, the sixth sense functions almost like a guardian angel.
It warns of impending dangers and notifies you of opportunities.
Right, it's that flash of inspiration that tells you to move left when you were planning to go right. It's the hunch that gives you the solution to a problem you've been agonizing over.
But you can't force it.
It communicates voluntarily. Your job is to keep the broadcasting station, the brain, maintained and energized so you can hear the message when it comes.
So what does this all mean for us today? If we strip away the 1930s language, what's the actionable formula?
It comes down to this. Your brain is a piece of broadcasting machinery. You are constantly interacting with the world through it.
Your desire is the signal you want to send.
Auto-suggestion is how you program that signal into the sending station, the subconscious. You have to emotionalize it to make it stick.
And the mastermind working with others is how you boost the signal's strength so it actually reaches the ether.
And finally, the creative imagination is your receiver, waiting for the answer or the plan to flash back to you.
I think the most encouraging thing Hill says is that education has nothing to do with it.
It's so true. He points to Thomas Edison, who had only 3 months of formal schooling. Henry Ford didn't reach high school.
The source material is adamant. Success isn't about how many facts you can memorize.
It's about how well you can organize and direct thought energy. It's about control of the mind.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the Gilded Age to modern neuroscience metaphors. But before we sign off, we want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Hill insists throughout the text that thoughts are things. They are forms of energy, just as real as the chair you're sitting in or the earth beneath your feet.
He says that your brain is constantly broadcasting these thought things 24 hours a day.
And since, and those broadcasts attract their physical equivalent.
Ask yourself this. What have you been unwittingly broadcasting for the last 24 hours?
Have you been broadcasting static worry and doubt? Or have you been broadcasting a clear, high-vibration signal of exactly what you want?
Because your receiver is always on, and it's going to play back exactly what you send out.
Start tuning your dials.